Peace, everyone. This is the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com. Feel free to reach me at hoodmystic@gmail.com. And here's all my information. So just feel free to hit me up. I'm real accessible. Let's get into this video, though. So today we're talking about shadow work and we're explaining shadow work. This isn't going to be a super long video. I'm just going to touch on some quotes and then give you some real life examples based on pop culture and different ways that shadow work is showing up and what it actually means and how we can use shadow work to empower ourselves and to enlighten ourselves. So let's have fun with this. The source of the quotes is coming from Carl Jung, a philosopher, psychologist of the early 20th century. So he has a lot of different works touching on the shadow, and it's like spread out and scattered. So this is more or less of a compilation of his works. Like I said, this is a short video, but I encourage you all to do your work and due diligence on Carl Jung and kind of do your own kind of decoding and translation of his works, because it's some very powerful stuff. So the first quote that we're going to tackle is from Carl Jung, and the quote states, "That which we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. The definition of fate is the development of events beyond a person's control, regarded as determined by a supernatural power. An example of that is fate decided his course for him. So ultimately, excuse me, with fate, we're talking about we don't have any control of our lives. Thus, since we don't have any control of our lives, we simply give it to God, or we pray on it, and we just wish and we just hope, because we generally don't have any control. So fate as in, I hope I hit the lottery, I hope somebody knocks on my door, that's just the perfect person for me that will just marry, I hope I just run into this person, just really having no control. Or I need to go to church, I need to get my life right, I can't stop doing Xanax, and all of this crazy stuff that goes on in our lives that we can't really control, so we just give it over to fate. And so shadow work in turn removes that concept. It takes fate away. We realize that, we are God. A lot of people in the conscious community call themselves gods and things of that nature, but what is the science behind that? How do you explain that, and how can we incorporate godliness into our everyday walks of life and being? The way that we do that is through shadow work, understanding shadow work. And the reason why we want to understand shadow work is because our shadow is ubiquitous. And if you don't know what ubiquitous means, you need to stay tuned. And so you can understand, it's informational as well. So understanding that inside of our brain, in the back of it, is the occipital lobe, one of the four major lobes in the cerebral cortex in the brain of mammals. The occipital lobe is the visual processing center. So our eyes send messages back to our brains because our eyes perceives the world upside down, and the colors and the things of that nature. And so whatever is seen out in the world, it gets sent back to our brain, and then our brain processes it, and then we visualize from the back of our brain. Thus, this concept, you should then question the physical world and everything that you see. Because everything that you see is not right and exact. It has to go through a process, and then you process it through your occipital lobe. So everything factors into what you see, how you feel, what you're thinking, your emotional state, what have you been trained to look for, your peripheral vision, and all of these things. And there's so much data that's outside in the physical world that it's so much data that it begins to be nothing. And that's how you get concepts like the Matrix, how you kind of understand that the physical world really has no value except the value that you put on it. And so really understanding this concepts brings us to our first pop culture tidbit that we kind of referenced, the shadow. The Allegory of the Cave. Now, the Allegory of the Cave is a story written by Plato where it was this group of prisoners trapped in this cave. And one of the prisoners got free. He left the cave. He seen light for the first time. And he tried to go back into the cave and tell the other prisoners, like, the things that you're seeing on this wall are not real. You need to come out of this cave and experience the real world. But when he told the prisoners that, they conspired to kill them. And so he had to run for his life, trying to save people that didn't necessarily want to be saved. And so the overall meaning of the Allegory of the Cave, if you never read it, was that ultimately knowledge is gained not through the senses. Anything that is gained through the senses is just merely an opinion. Anything that you see is merely an opinion. Nothing that you see is a fact. Because ultimately, whatever you are seeing is subject to change. Guaranteed to change. Erode and corrode and all of that. So ultimately, the physical world is not something that you need to focus on. The physical world is but a mere shadow. So let's look at the shadow as it refers to the Allegory of the Cave. So if you were one of the prisoners, you can't look at anything behind you, to the side of you. You must look at the wall in front of you. And that is talking about the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe. I can't say that word. So anyways, in your mind, in your physical eyes, you cannot see to the left of you, to the right of you, up of you, down with you. No, you cannot see anything. The only thing that you can see is in the back of your brain, the occipital lobe. That is your visual cortex. If somebody knocks that out, then you won't see. But if you knock one of your eyes out, that second eye can still transmit images and things of that nature. So your eyes aren't the key to you seeing. It is the occipital lobe. But what are you actually seeing when you look out of your eyes? So when things happen, when people walk past you, you're not actually seeing them. You're actually seeing the shadow casted on them from yourself. And I know this is a difficult concept to kind of wrap your head around, because I literally been reading this Allegory of the Cave for 10-15 years, just decoding it and trying to understand it. So you have to understand that this is not talking about physical things. These are talking about emotional concepts. So once you can break free of your emotional ties to the physical world, then you free yourself. But if you actually think that the emotions that you feel in, whether it be love, happiness, success, all of these things are real, then you are trapped in the cave, because you're trapped in creating a physical reality for yourself that's going to be pretty, that is beautiful, but is not real. You have to do shadow work. You have to kind of leave the cave. You have to exit everything that you see. You have to exit your mind, in a sense. And once you do that, you actually free yourself. But the shadow is speaking to, because even in the cave, when he was explaining things to the prisoners, they wanted to kill him. You understand? And that was almost the end of the story, because ultimately, when you think that you're right and you're doing the right thing by trying to save people, then you automatically are putting yourself in a dire, dangerous position, because people are comfortable, and people's life paths is them being confined to the physical reality. And if your life path is not that, then you are not doing anybody no favors by staying in the cave, trying to rile people up to leave the cave, to wake people up, and to save black people and all of this stuff. If you have vision, if you have spiritual insight, then it's your responsibility to go forward in that. And you can't really look back and save people. And this is shadow work. And so the picture of Scarface, Tony Montana, I don't know if you actually seen the movie and broke down the movie, but ultimately, the reason why Tony Montana got killed is because he did the right thing. Understand, when he killed Manolo, nothing happened. When he was killing people, nothing happened. When he was selling drugs, nothing happened. When he had mountains of cocaine just sniffing up his nose and all the women and all of that, things of that nature, nothing was happening to him. But then he had an assignment with the Colombian drug cartel to do a hit on the politician. But the politician had his kids and his wife in the car. And so instead of doing the hit, Tony Montana ended up killing the person that he was doing the hit with and went back to the boss, like gave him a fake story or whatever. And then the cartel was like, you know, Tony Montana gotta die. And that was his downfall, when he did the right thing. And I guess the message in that is that when it's working for you, do it. If you have a system based on what your family says you should and shouldn't do, but it don't work for you, but you still trying to hold up and live up to that standard, you are destroying yourself, because the shadow is an individual thing. This is not a collective thing. This is not a family thing. This is not a racial thing. This is a personal, individual thing that you got to come to terms with. And if you're not ready to come to terms with it, then just be okay with being a prisoner. And if you are conscious and you know people that's okay with being a prisoner, you just got to let their ass be prisoners. And you got to do you. You got to still cultivate your spirit and cultivate your shadow. Because we're going to talk about what the shadow is. We're not finished. Unfortunately, there could be no doubt that a man is on the whole less good than he imagines himself or wants to be. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. At all counts, it forms an unconscious snag thwarting our most well-meant intentions. So ultimately, when we don't do the shadow work is more pervasive and more deadly and more evil. And the most well-intentioned plans that we have without doing the shadow work is just going to fail. So you're in relationships where you're not 100% honest, or you're trying to start stuff and you're trying to work with people and you got stuff pent up and all of this stuff, and you insecure and you got hella self-doubts because of some old shit, but you thinking some new shit is going to make it better. No, the shadow becomes more dense and more thicker in that, and it becomes an unconscious snag, and it becomes to a point where you just sit in the house depressed because you don't feel as though anything that you do may be successful, because you know that you're a good person, or you perceive yourself to be a good person, but you be doing some bad shit. And so you don't want to talk about the shit that you really about, you know, you cuss or things of that nature. Oh, why you cussing, brother? And all of this other stuff. But you got cuss words in your head and things of that nature. But it goes deep. It goes deep. So it's very personal. And it's really about establishing your individual identity separate from the family, society. And I'm speaking to people who generally consider themselves conscious, awake, and aware. Because this is the work. This is, so when you see a person with an ankh and a dashiki on, and you think, okay, this is what I need to be doing. I need to get me a crown with crystals on it. You understand? Because this is representing my consciousness. But I'm not doing none of the work that brings about wholeness and fulfillment of my soul and me realizing my soul's purpose, or becoming the God that I say I am every day on Facebook. So it's very important. Generally, we have to go through a downfall. In 302, the uprising or something of that nature, Xerxes goes into Athens. He gets his ass kicked. His dad died. The country's about to fall. He don't know what to do. He start dealing with his feminine energy, and then he, they throw the rap over him. He got to walk in the desert, and he got to find a cave, and then he got to submerge himself in the shadow. He got to submerge himself in the darkness, like deep, deep, deep into it. But it's all peace though, because when he rises up as a god king. And I want to talk about the shadow work because if we're going to sit here and talk about how conscious we are and how much of gods we are, but we're not going to talk about the shadow work, what are we actually doing? What are you actually doing? Are you just researching who got the best, crystal prices? You understand? Who got the hottest dashikis? Who got the best, natural scrub products and things of that nature? You trying to get your brand together? You know what I'm saying? You using consciousness as a way to fund your lifestyle? Okay. So therefore, when you as an individual still suffering and suffering and suffering and going through everything that you're going through and feeling like you got to pray or do a spell and you don't know where your power is at, you understand? And you still trying to be the best person that you can be. And you trying to get in these groups with people that make you feel better. But you never really addressing your real issues. You never really addressing your real insecurities. You never really addressing the things that bother you. And not even to the fact that they bother you and like it's some real shit that's bothering you. You haven't even experienced what bothering is because you're just trapped in your occipital lobe. You're just trapped in the physical world. You actually think this matrix has variables. You think that this house is better than that house. This neighborhood is better than that neighborhood. A friend told me yesterday, it's not where you live, it's how you live. That's very key. And it was just in conversation, but that was very deep. I'm always remember that. Because generally, people always feeling bad for their situation, but they not even realizing that their situation doesn't even exist. Your situation is anything that you want it to be based on your mind. But if you're attached to family and things of that nature, they'll infiltrate and say, look at you. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But we're trying to transform. We're trying to turn to Xerxes. We're trying to transform to that God King. We're trying to transform to that God Queen. Because we talk about it every day on Facebook, how, we gods and, quote the Bible verse and share fancy ass memes of our power and the voodoo witch doctors and things of that nature. But how do the voodoo witch doctors do their power? How do a psychic get their power? How does a healer get her power? Through shadow work. That's the only way. If you got another way, leave it in the comments so I can do some research. Ubiquitous, present, appearing, and found everywhere. No matter where I go, my shadow is right there. No matter what city I'm in, my shadow is there. If I was on a vacation, my shadow would be there. If I got me a new girlfriend, my shadow would be there. If I got a bigger house, my shadow would be there because my shadow is ubiquitous, present, appearing, found everywhere. Since all individuals by nature have a shadow, by nature, you find me a person that doesn't have a shadow, leave them in the comments because that person is the ultimate anomaly. What differentiates human being is not the existence or non-existence of a shadow, but the degree to which one is conscious of their shadow. How aware are you of your shadow? Or are you comfortable with just being sad that shit ain't going your way? Or are you comfortable with just not having no control over your reality? Are you comfortable with shelling out 50 and 60, hundreds and thousands of dollars for spiritual retreats and readings and things of that nature? So you can have some concept or idea of what the fuck is going on with your life. Huh? You okay with doing something that you hate because you just stuck on a survival mode. You realize that there's degrees and levels and classes to earth, and you feel like, where do you fit in this? You need to do more. You need to do better. But you don't even realize how you got to where you got to in the first damn place. But you feel like since you need to do better, that's going to cover up the mistakes that you made to get to the point where you even think that you have to do better. That's shadow work. Because you do the shadow work, you realize you don't got to do shit. But realize that you're ubiquitous. You're present, appearing, and found everywhere. You have a spirit. You have a soul. Your human body is not ubiquitous. I am in Columbus on the west side right now. I ain't nowhere else physically. But I have a voice and an internet connection, so my spirit and soul becomes ubiquitous. I'm now in England somewhere, Africa, New Zealand, Taiwan. You know what I'm saying? I can show you my diagnostics of my YouTube page and my website all over the world. My voice, you understand? Ubiquitous. But it's not me saying that I'm special. Anybody can. This YouTube account is free. My WordPress account is free. You understand? But you actually have to put in that work to project yourself and build that. Build it within yourself. Don't worry about the followers and who's liking your shit, because that may never come. But ultimately, you understanding that you have something to say and you have something to work through. And once you do work through it, you have a modality to reach out to people and, begin to really help because you truly helped yourself. And that's really what the work is about. Another story I want to bring your attention to is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I seen this as a young man and it really impacted me. Dr. Jekyll was a famous scientist. He was a good scientist, but he was smart. And he created this concoction that brought about this alter ego called Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde was everything that Dr. Jekyll wasn't. He was smooth. He got the ladies. It's kind of like the Nutty Professor as well. It reminds me of the Nutty Professor as I'm explaining it. But anyways, as I digress. He was smooth. He got the ladies, but he was crazy. And, because Dr. Jekyll, he let people play him for years. And then once he took that potion, he became Mr. Hyde. Then you couldn't play him. Like, you couldn't play him no more. And so that got him into trouble. But Dr. Jekyll was so worried about his reputation that scared him half to death. It wasn't that Mr. Hyde was evil. Mr. Hyde was just an aspect of himself that he couldn't really escape. And he was addicted to Mr. Hyde. And long story short, they go back and forth. And ultimately, Mr. Hyde won. And at the end of the book, he wrote the story. He wrote it like, this is my last entry as Dr. Jekyll. Mr. Hyde will be back and I can't fight him no more. You understand? And that's just how powerful the shadow is. And it's not evil. It's not bad. But it can be. Because you need to destroy some bullshit in your life. You need to. You need to be evil to motherfuckers who's trying to destroy you. You want to be a nice guy your whole life? Have fun with that. But motherfuckers will walk over you. Because this world is not what you want it to be. So understanding that within you is all the evil that you need to have. Shit. Yes, I'm evil. Stay away from me. It's that simple. But no, you want to be like, no, I have positive vibrations. I'm on the high side of it. And no, you can't come over my house. No. Care if you're my family. Your vibration too low. I'm sacred space. Because I'm working on something. I'm doing alchemy here. And I don't need you. If I'm doing alchemy, if I'm deep diving into the pool of darkness and shadow, I don't need you talking about, you know what I'm saying, my shit is dirty. It's supposed to be dirty because I'm doing alchemy right now. You know what I'm saying? How long is this alchemy process going to take? I don't know. And if you want to feel as though this is wrong, I would counter that with, you've been being good your whole fucking life. Niggas still cheated. Girls still cheated. You still got fired. You still ain't got rich. You still ain't happy. You still living check to check. But you a good person though. And that's why everybody who get rich, what do they become? The Illuminati. Satan. Gotta deal with Satan. Must be a Mason. Well, it's a trick to it. You damn right it's a trick to it. They say fuck y'all. I'm choosing my material success over being nice to y'all. And I can't be nice to you no more. So that's why once a person get rich, you don't see them no more. And so, really understanding the shadow is important. It helps me with my readings and things of that nature, and just really being relatable, because I'm authentic. I'm not worried about, telling you something positive. I'm gonna give it to you 100, because life is about control. And if I tell you something positive, that's just indicating to me that you don't have control and you just waiting for something positive to happen. So ultimately, deal with somebody that's into real work and not into just light work and making you feel good. Because you've been feeling good for the past umpteen years. And now we here back at this place. This cyclical nature and this law of rhythm and things of that nature. So take control of your vibration and move forward with your thoughts. Do the shadow work. So I hope this video helped you. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If you want to contact me, talk to me, hit me up at hoodmystic@gmail.com. But other than that, I just hope everybody have a good night. Peace.